Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Your name's Adam. I've been calling you, Evan this entire time. Why haven't you corrected me?
Evan's a cool name, so best of both worlds. Didn't want to be rude or anything, and I've just gone with it.
What's the other world? You've had the best of one world of being called Evan. What's the Adam world that you're so fond of?
It's very biblical. First of my name, that kind of thing. I don't know where we're going with this. It's a weird conversation.
So, are you saying you literally are Adam of the first men?
The first men. I'm basically the
king of the Andals or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Breaker of chains. In case you're wondering, does Unnatural Selection riff, or do they thoroughly plan and carefully word the openings of their shows? That you can rest assured now. You know for a fact that obviously we're riffing and we have no fucking clue what's going on. So
I don't have any clue what's going on, but I can tell you, gentlemen, that it is very hot. It's hot.
It's a hot boy.
It's a hot boy, which might be why we're riffing badly. It might be part of the reason.
It's so hot and wet. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that it might also explain why we just riff so much, because, I don't know about you guys, but I've felt just a lot of sun in the past couple days, so it's probably just cooked my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of heat stroke.
I've definitely given myself maybe 3 more melanomas that'll pop up in the next couple of years that I'll have to sort out. So, yep.
It does also explain Scott Morrison's idea to put children in forklifts this week. Maybe that's what was happening. He's just sat out in the sun too much like a fucking spud, and it's actually cooked his brain, and that's where he's getting these ideas from.
I see. I think smash cut right now. The sun is just you can't pin that on me. That is extra strength crazy.
Skin cancer, I'll wear that. Fair enough, mate. Skin cancer, that's on me, okay? But Scott fucking Morrison, that's on you, okay? You voted for that.
I may be a seemingly endless, although will end in 5 billion years, source of fusion energy, but no, I am not responsible for the absolute bell end that runs your country. You can't lay that at my feet.
So the story that we're referring to there is, that's basically it. Scott Morrison.
Auckland Gate.
So, and I'm happy for the memes because it gave me life this week. It was one of those stories that was just
it sparked joy. Marie Kondo would have been proud.
Marie Kondo would have put this story back into her closet. She would have folded it up into 3s and put it vertically against a bunch of other stories in there. I'm trying to think of what those might be, but nothing comes to mind. It's one of the first in there that we're going to keep, and then we're going to Tony Abbott eating an onion. There you go. That's one. Famous prime ministerial gaffes that didn't cause any bloodshed or harm. Yeah, it was just prime minister suggests a dumb thing. Country laughs at him for a week. Nothing bad happened. Everything was okay, but it was funny how dumb the idea was, and then everything was okay. It didn't happen.
Harold Holt going swimming. Classic gag.
No, I don't think
classic gag. What?
I like to think he's still out there swimming back to us, old Harold.
He's in the Chinese submarine that picked him up, of course, off Bass Strait, which definitely happened.
Google it. So, in case you're wondering, Scott Morrison was saying that in order to alleviate some of the supply shortages, the PM during the National Cabinet meeting was going to ask the states to consider lowering the legal age required to drive a forklift. The Guardian reported on Thursday morning. So lots of people sick with COVID, obviously. Lots of people isolating or close contacts with people with COVID, or they've tested positive, even if they don't necessarily have any symptoms and they're having to isolate at home. It's causing large issues with the supply chain. Supply chain, also my least favorite word for 2021. 2022. It's my least favorite word. It's my least favorite phrase for the last
2022.
However long life has continued to be going on. So
The last epoch.
yes. This, of course, spawned a veritable feast of baby driving forklift memes on the internet, and the plan was quickly revoked.
I would go through a couple of my favorite memes.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
I think so. The Tony Hawk-
describing memes in an audio medium may not be the strongest comedic pursuit we're engaged
ripping
in.
and we're committing to the bit,
Alrighty.
George. Let's go. Yes, and let's go,
Okay.
boys. Use that performing arts degree. Okay, so we've
Ultimate
got Tony
boomer
Hawk.
content.
Shh. Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Except it's Tony Hawk Pro Forklift 2, not the first one, but the sequel. And an image instead of a skateboard, it has a forklift doing a kickflip.
It really describing memes might be the funniest thing ever.
It might be the funniest thing we may have.
I think we've nailed a new format. We just get on the show and we just describe memes.
My second favorite one was the one from Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Oh, yeah.
Where Aragorn puts the helmet on the young child, sending him off to war. And as he puts it on, and then the bottom of it's got on the top of the helmet, forklift license.
Yeah.
Just sends him off. Do you guys have any other favorite memes?
There was there's like, I don't think memes are actually good. You know what I mean? Like when you break it down, if you have to look back on it and actually like explain it, it's obviously like the dumbest shit ever. But I do appreciate a good meme. So there was like, the one where it's like speaking to someone's, it's like literally nobody, and then Scott Morrison, big baby, tiny baby drive big machine, and it's not a joke per se. There's no joke there. But it's just enjoyable. It's enjoyable content, and that's what I needed on my Thursday. I had a hard day.
Tom, did you have any enjoyable content that you saw out of the saga?
I think it's amazing to, maybe not so much content, but just seeing the thought pattern that this implies. Like that issue being not enough forklift drivers, and that before they consider things like, I don't know, free training, like, let's just actually make getting a license to drive a forklift not cost anything, and then more people could get those licenses and then be qualified to do the work, and ergo more forklift drivers. No, we can't. The idea of like not getting money for something that we were previously been getting money for, that's ridiculous. No. Put teenagers in them. That'll do it. Have you met teenagers? I mean, like teenagers, I think now are smarter than they were. I'll give them that. But also, no, let them be teenagers.
I don't know what the big fuss is.
Heavy machinery.
I don't know what the big fuss is, guys. Forklifts are notoriously safe. They're one of the most safe.
Actually,
let me just look at this.
1 in 6 workplace accidents, workplace deaths are directly related to forklifts. It's actually incredibly dangerous.
Right. Okay. You're basically driving a weapon. Great.
Yeah. It's like driving a big car indoors with people walking around with Vlad the Impaler sticks on the front of it. If you think about it,
a war beast. It's a Mad Max war beast. That's exactly what a forklift is.
If you strapped a guy playing a flaming guitar onto the front of it, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it that way. So, the friend of the show,
need to be quite qualified.
Yes, quite qualified to drive one. And I just love this like Dickensian fucking impulse to just let the kids do it. Like their hands are so small, they can get up in the gears. Like the neoliberal response to this crisis is just like, how can we get children to do the work? How do we let's make it safer. Let's see if we can introduce PPE, or let's see if we can get some people out of retirement to help out, or like the response is just like, maybe the kids will do it. Let's just like throw. It reminds me of that. That you won't recognize this reference, Adam, probably because you haven't watched it. But it's Futurama. He goes, it's Captain, what's his name, who's modeled after Captain Kirk, and he just says, Zap Brannigan. Yes, I just sent wave after wave of my own men until they reach their kill limits. Like, that's basically
the kill bot. I outsmarted them.
Yeah, by sending wave after wave of my own men. It just seems to be, and that seems like what the government's plan is. It's just like, we're going to get unemployed people to come in and fill those jobs. We're just going to throw bodies at it and just like, some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Meanwhile, Victor Hugo in 1862 is just like, oh, cool. Yeah, no worries. And meanwhile, Cosette comes on, instance in Les Miserables, which is a music theatre reference or even a literary reference for those that have actually slodged through Les Mis. But anyway, she comes on with, instead of her broom, she's got a forklift and she's just singing Castle on a Cloud while trying to reverse back into a pallet of kegs.
Beep, beep.
There is a castle on a beach.
So friend of the show, Alice Tovey tweeted, the Wiggles will now include a forklift safety procedural dance in all live shows, which I thought was good because the Wiggles, obviously very topical because they won the Hottest 100 for their cover of Tame Impala's Elephant. So that's just it's very topical.
Speaking of memes, that just confirms the fact that the Hottest 100 is in fact just a big walking meme, but sure.
It just confirms to me that the world is a simulation. That's what it says to me. And Unnatural Selection's Twitter response to that, Instagram response to that was, if you're TILILIC003 qualified and you know it, clap your hands. I had to look that up.
Victorian.
That is
You looked it up?
I had to do some Googling for this joke. It's the actual forklift qualification that you need in here.
See, I love George. If you had to Google it to write the joke, then probably your audience will have to Google it to understand
I'm fine with that. Like, I feel as though someone reading that could make the connections and they could get there from the context cues.
I mean, that's fair. Also, interestingly enough, speaking of the Wiggles and the Hottest 100, they also won the Coldest 100 yesterday as well.
What's the Coldest 100?
I don't know if you guys saw that.
Is that the shittest songs?
Well, yeah, sort of. A comedian was just doing a Twitter thread of the Coldest 100 of just cringe songs from Australian culture. Like some really fucked up shit, like Kyle Sanderland's like Get the Vax song from last year.
Oh, that was bad.
And all this sort of stuff. But I believe 2014 Wiggles song about poppadoms came out in the number one.
You can't call back to 2014. Cringe. You can't do that.
Oh, this sort of shit was calling back to like the 80s. It was just Aussie cringe culture.
No, that's not fair. It's got to be current year cringe. There is enough cringe in the current year to go off. You can't be pulling stuff from 7 years ago.
I don't think you understand how cringe the Poppadom song by the Wiggles is.
I don't. Things have changed. People have learned and grown. There's
horrific.
There's Lady Wiggles now. It's a whole new world. It's not fair. It's not fair to go back to 2014.
George, we haven't grown because the Prime Minister of this country, or at least it was either in his thought process or someone very close to him, their thought process, that children could drive forklifts.
What was the thought process? How is policy fucking suggested it? Like, as though getting a couple of 16-year-olds trained up on a forklift would presumably take, I don't know, weeks. Like, it's not going to alleviate the problem that we have right now. And so I just imagine some like liberal staffer brainstorming, like alt-right, Nazi youth brainstorming session going on in some liberal party room where they're just like, okay, guys, we've all come here from Scotch College. Let's throw some ideas up on the wall. No bad ideas. Tyler, go. And he just goes, we can fucking get the plebs. We can get children to drive forklifts. And he goes, fucking Chad, great work. Let's put it up on the board. No bad ideas. Like,
and that's lunch.
And then someone just said, it's 10:30. And I said lunch. And then someone presents that to the Prime Minister and goes, we'll just really throw a little weather balloon up, see whether that's a cooked idea or not. And then I'd
love to know who leaked this. That was probably the other thing that I'd love to know. Like, who was the person smart enough to go, this is seriously on the agenda? Why is this on the agenda?
Must have been Jenny Morrison. Who else? Scott Morrison's wife. Who else is the beacon of reason and sanity in this government?
The country's conscience.
So tell me, Tom, if you were as a 16-year-old, do you feel as though you'd be mentally and physically equipped to drive a forklift around during the apocalypse?
I'm not even mentally or physically equipped to drive a forklift now. And I'm twice as old as a 16-year-old. You know me, I'm a scrawny, tiny man. Like, well, what use would I be in a fucking warehouse?
Did you drive a car at 16?
Yes.
I could not.
Oh. See, I grew up in Canberra where the rules of learning to drive start much earlier.
When you say you could not, Adam, you weren't allowed to, you chose not to?
I didn't get my L's, I think, till I was 17.
Lazy boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I just loved having my parents drive me around. It was very efficient.
You're getting chauffeured around everywhere? Very nice.
Yeah, that's great.
That actually explains a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, so that just to give everyone peace of mind, this suggestion, shall we say, from some various machination of the government or Liberal Party, has been squashed now. And
weird. It seemed like such a good idea.
Yes, I assume they were laughed out of National Cabinet by all the state leaders.
I don't know. Did they actually raise it in National Cabinet in the end, or did they have the foresight just to go, we won't take that?
Oh, maybe they canned it early.
Agenda.
I'm not sure. I just thought after the National Cabinet meeting, there was like, that idea isn't. It's been agreed that is not being pursued further, and I don't think they did much more detail than that. So,
just getting a quick message through. Turns out that's a cooked idea, and we're all fucking idiots, and we're the laughing stock of the entire country. So we're going to go ahead and take that off the list. We should be like, hey, what was on the rest of the list? What were the other ideas that you're bringing in? We just heard about the cooked forklift one. What else was on the list? It was just like, and we want the others. Like, we want grandmas to drive buggies around, and we want toddlers to drive golf carts. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff against the wall here. I just want to see what sticks.
And some like armada of trained gophers. We don't have gophers in Australia. Fuck.
It's the only flaw in our plan.
We have gophers? I don't think we had gophers.
I don't think so.
No.
We have wombats.
We do, and they are good at digging tunnels and then killing people with their bums.
And then why are we not monetizing this? And then we can redeploy construction workers that are building the tunnels to go and drive some trucks. I don't know. I'm just putting ideas out there. I'm getting a lot
Let the wombats do it.
I'm getting a lot of no's, but I'm not getting a lot of solutions, guys.
So part of the problem, I guess, why this cooked solution came up was by way of example, Victoria earlier this week or last week, if you're depending on when you're listening to this, issued a Code Brown alert.
Yes, we all collectively shat our pants.
Yes. Now, I was going to say, and turns out it was the answer to the question I was about to pose ended up being 3 seconds. How long can we go without making a poo joke? But it seems like Code Brown, because everyone's shitting their pants. It seems like a joke that is not funny or original, but like needed to be made because it reflects a deep sorrow inside of us.
Well, yes, but also it's kind of like, seriously, we're continuing to call them Code Browns. Like, just change the name.
Change the
name.
Change the date and change the name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm on board with this, but it's like, yeah, come on, guys. The poo jokes write themselves. Like, the first time you suggested, we've got Code Red and all that sort of stuff, and we'll call it Code Brown. It's like, no, but seriously, yeah, let's call it Code Brown.
I reckon, call it Code, magenta rainbow swell. Like, you could just do what you want. Do you?
I don't know.
I'm looking at the codes. So these are the codes in Australia.
Oh, all right.
Well, this is actually from WA, but I'm assuming it's the same nationally.
They do want us to see heaps, so probably they have their own rules just because they can.
So fire/smoke in a hospital is code red. Medical emergency is code blue. Bomb threat is code purple. Infrastructure or other internal emergencies are code yellow. Personal threat is code black. Evacuation is code orange. And an external emergency, which would be similar to what we're dealing with here, is a code brown. So that's the coding. So they've run out of colours, I think, as part of the problem. You could do
pink. They could have gone pink and alleviated this entire issue.
Code magenta, I hear, is quite... they've got code purple, so you can't really have...
Code fuchsia.
If you've got code purple, code fuchsia, code aqua.
Yeah. I feel like surely though they're not being presented as the literal colors, right? Like there isn't like a yellow flash or something. I assume they're announced.
On
So
all
it's
the
more-
charts, they are literally the colors.
Right. That's what I mean. So it's probably more. Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, surely it's more an issue of whether the colors sound similar. So when you hear them over the PA,
Yeah.
if you never mix them up, that's more the issue than whether or not pink and magenta and purple are too similar. But I digress.
Again, rainbow swirl, not going to get confused with fucking anything, is it?
Banana paddle pop, I hear, is quite a great, favorite amongst the children.
Why do we need to be restricted to, it could be code hazelnut, code almond crunch. It's actually a very serious issue.
Yeah, we should stop making color jokes. Really bad color jokes about a literal state of emergency.
People are dying. It's very upsetting.
What is a code brown? Code brown is a measure the Victorian State Health System has put in place to relieve pressure on hospitals, typically reserved for sudden short-term emergencies like a train crash, bushfire, where there's lots of trauma, that kind of thing. During a code brown, hospitals can cancel their staff's leave. They can defer less urgent services, and it's meant to last, in this case here, they've said between 4 to 6 weeks. Now, part of this, I think, included, IVF cancellation, which they've now backed.
I think they reversed on that. Yeah.
They've reversed to that now.
I think IVF is happening again.
So it's pretty serious. It means the hospital system's under a fair bit of stress. Hospitalizations in Victoria, they're sort of peaked at the moment. The suggestion is that in New South Wales and Victoria, it's sort of peaking, but we're still sort of yet to really get to the other side to get a decent indication of the trend.
It seems as though the Omicron wave has crested. The number of new cases seems to be going down, but as to how that's going to affect hospitalizations and deaths, it might take a couple of weeks before that information really properly filters through. So, it's just like another additional story on the huge dumpster pile of stories that we've had this year about the health system not really being able to keep up with the demand that's being expected of it.
It's funny because WA, everyone's criticizing them because they've shut their border again.
I couldn't believe the articles that I saw this week. They're like, Mark McGowan has delayed shutting WA up, and people are furious. And I was like, I don't know. I think people in WA would not be too upset about that, to be completely honest, seeing the absolute unmitigated rollicking shit show that's happening here in Victoria and New South Wales, to be like, we're just going to hold off and get a couple more boosters in arms before we open ourselves up to that shit show. Thanks. I don't know why people...
What it might have shown is that they probably weren't as prepared for this as they thought they were. So while they've got the opportunity to not have to deal with the staffing shortages and stuff.
Yeah,
why would you open yourself up to that?
It's the weirdest thing. It's almost like the government is learning from the mistakes that other people have made, and then and try to ensure that they don't experience the negative consequences themselves by preparing in advance. I don't know what you would call that. I don't know if there's a word for preparation. Good government.
Well,
I don't know.
To me, it sounds like they're not preparing. That's part of the problem, is that they've realised that they're not ready for this and they haven't been ready for it.
But rather than New South Wales and Victoria, the solution to that problem, which seems to be just we're not prepared. Guess we're going to get real badly fucked. And just and then let it happen. At least it sounds like WA's go, okay, we're going to shut things down. We've got to obviously ramp up. We spent the last 2 years saying, we've got to delay, we've got to bend the curve to give the hospital system time to catch up, and then subsequently, didn't. It seems like maybe WA might actually have a chance of allowing their system to be better prepared for, the eventuality of being swamped. The fucking, yes.
I don't know. Tom, do you have any friends or family in WA that have expressed any...
No, I don't really. Not people I'm in regular contact with out west. So no, not really. But yeah, I guess when you say that, it's like governments and all that are learning from the mistakes of others. I think it's the mistakes of others is the key thing there. Where that's why Sydney and Victoria and everywhere haven't improved in this way. You don't learn from the mistakes that you yourself perpetrate. I think that's just how people work, right? We learn from other people fucking up, but we never learn from ourselves fucking up.
There was a great book.
Not really.
There was a great book that I read ages ago. Mistakes were made, but not by me. Which talks about it's a social psychology book about how the brain is wired for self-justification, and like it's basically the brain is an excuse-making machine. It'll just like do stuff and then always justify it post hoc as to why what they did at the time was like a rational good thing. I was like, oh, so we're doomed. We're doomed. We're all a bunch of fucking idiots just like doing stuff and then justifying it afterwards. Like, cool. Great. That's good. Good to know.
We're the most adaptable species to change on the planet, except when it affects us.
But, my dad was never able to admit when he was wrong about anything. He'd just be like, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm like, that's not an apology, Dad. We're going to take another run at this in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Probably a good segue
sorry
for
you
this.
feel that way. Maybe you could think about why I feel that.
No, you're so close.
I'm just sorry that you feel that way.
You're almost there.
No, just follow that thought to its logical conclusion.
No,
please.
I'm sorry you feel that way, and there was nothing that any of us could have done to prevent it.
It's been decades of warped emotional support.
Probably a good segue for learning from our mistakes. The immigration minister learned from his and finally cancelled the visa of Novak Djokovic. Tom, do you know? I could have lost track. I stopped caring as to what happened, but like, how did this?
Oh my god!
Eventuate?
So I don't know. Just the way that this story seems to panned out, right? Was the world wondered, right from the beginning, world wonders whether Djokovic will be allowed to come play in the Australian Open because he is very famously not, like, anti-vax. Like, very anti-vax. And everyone's like, will he be able to do it? And then he posts to social media, I have an exemption. Australia loses its mind. Being like, what the fuck? This is fucked. Everything we've been through. How could we grant him an exemption? And the government's like, oh shit. Like, maybe we should do something about this. They just cart him off to one of our detention gulags once he gets to the airport.
Look, if there's one thing that the Australian government is good at, it's detaining immigrants. That's definitely one thing that we've got that down pitch perfect.
So they cart him off to one of our gulags and grill him overnight, not letting him sleep, all that sort of stuff. And then a judge is like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up that you did that to him, and like pressured him to not get legal counsel and all these cooked things. So nope, you're not allowed to detain him. Let him into the country. So then the government, the immigration minister, was like, well, we got to double down on this, though, so cancel visa. Just using his own, veto powers, and back into the gulag he went.
At the 11th hour.
At the 11th hour. Like, this was, 2 days before he was due to start playing, I think?
Yeah.
Like, he was scheduled to be playing on Monday, and on Saturday they went jog on. So they take him back to the Carlton gulag, and they fight it in court. And 3 judges decided that no, the immigration minister wasn't acting. I think irrationally was the word that was being thrown around a lot, because I think that must have been like the defense strategy they're going for or whatever. Saying like, no, he hasn't acted irrationally because he had reason to believe that Djokovic's presence in Australia and being allowed to play in the Australian Open could rile up anti-vax sentiment in the populace at a time when getting vaccinated is important. So no, he was acting in the public's interest to cancel your visa. It was not an irrational thing to be afraid of. Get out of the country.
Get out me country, fuck off, we're full. I would like to stipulate that they haven't really done anything to come down with similar alacrity on the anti-vaxxers in their own party.
Exactly.
Which does bother me somewhat. They're like, hey, mate, this anti-vax is really fucked. And Corey Bernardi's just in the background, like just trying to jump up and get in the picture. It's like, hey guys.
Been in Parliament for ages.
Hey guys, it's me, Corey Bernardi, Common Sense Party, Common Sense Podcast. Get onto it.
Nah, let's be serious here. Corey Bernardi hasn't been.
Okay, sorry. He was just a member of Parliament in their party for years. I'm sorry to tar them with the same brush as Corey Bernardi. What about George Christensen, the member for Manila? What about him? Okay, famously an anti-vaxxer, still in the party. How about that? Is that a better example?
Famously an anti-vaxxer, and was recently, the government equivalent of the old Team America thing of, we'll write you a very angry letter telling you how angry we are for George Christensen saying insane shit on a podcast about being anti-vax and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I think it's fascinating to see how this Djokovic saga, as well as, bringing, back into the public discussion of our Australia's horrific history of detaining people seeking asylum and how they've kept people in these forever Carlton gulags for nearly a decade.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Do you know how you're thinking about it? Don't think about it.
Don't think about it. And that everyone got behind to protest putting a famous tennis star in there, but then, they weren't there for the people who'd been there for 10 years. But then some of them subsequently learnt about the people who were there for 10 years and went, oh shit, that's kind of fucked as well. But just to see how this went from, I don't know, a grant, that the government looked like the good guys almost for, hey, mate, we shouldn't be granting this entrance into the country to someone who's not vaccinated. We shouldn't be making an exception for the super rich athlete. But then they grill him kind of really fucked style after they do it. They're the bad guys again. Then they cancel the visa, seeming like the good guys again.
The Frogan is also cursed.
Yeah, but because they're doing it in this sort of way, it shows how stupid they are. You tried to cancel it the first time, but we've got a border force that, that part of the reason they were pressuring him to not see his lawyer was because the dude's shift was about to end. All this really is it's you tried to do the right thing, but you did it so absolutely fucking horrendously that the minister had to veto power it, and we look like, fucking Big Brother.
But this is exactly what I've said all along, is even when they do good things, they still do it for wrong, fucked up reasons. Yeah. They can't, it is like the George Costanza thing from Seinfeld, where he goes, everything I think that is a good idea, I'm going to do the opposite. And that's what the Liberal Party should do. Everything you think is a good idea, do the opposite of that. Okay?
So, yeah, they have used this power before, when Dutton was immigration minister, he cancelled the visa of, men's rights activists. And I think there was a female anti-vaxxer that was barred entry as well earlier in the pandemic from everything we talked about it on the show.
Ladies can be gender equality. Ladies can be fucking idiots as well. There you go.
But there's some other unintended. So this happened at the end of last week. It was resolved. The Australian Open's
it was the night after we recorded our last episode. I think is when the ruling came in.
Djokovic went home to Serbia, and the Serbians took the whole thing very well. They were really, really chill about it.
The Serbians have a history of taking things gracefully, I think.
Very gracefully.
I think there were mass riots.
Oh. The mass riots in the streets, basically, in Melbourne. And the whole thing became this lightning rod in Serbia, where Belgrade was marching on the streets of Belgrade, as though somehow that would affect the Australian immigration minister's decision. Anyway, probably because, I'm not sure, is the biggest, sporting hero to come out of Serbia, ever. But perhaps one thing they didn't, the Liberal government didn't expect was the Serbian government's revoking of a lithium mining license to Rio Tinto, which is partly an Australian company. Rio Tinto, now correct me if I'm wrong, is this the same company that blew up the
Aboriginal heritage sites? Cultural.
Is that the same company we're thinking of here, or have I just mixed up my mining giants?
It is.
We are at the stage. We are at the stage now when referring to vast swathes of ecological disaster, if you mention one mining company, you stand a high chance of being correct. I believe Rio Tinto was the company that blew that up.
I think it was Rio Tinto. Yeah, where they were just willy-nilly blowing up places in the outback and destroying cultural.
Yes. So here we go. Rio Tinto's chairman and director will step down over the destruction of 2 ancient Aboriginal rock shelters. 46,000-year-old Juukan Gorge rock shelters were destroyed for an iron ore mine in Western Australia last year. Well, good. At least they were destroyed for profit.
Yeah.
So that's good.
So that's the history of Rio. That's the background of Rio Tinto, if you will.
Believe it or not, mining company, resource extraction companies might have slightly checkered pasts. I don't know if that's occurred to you at all, but
so there's different kinds of mining you can do. You can do iron ore, you can do gold. This here was a lithium mine, which is famous for its environmental standards and clean green image.
It is famous for its environmental standards, just not in the way you think.
Now, lithium mining is notoriously destructive for the environment.
It's a real catch-22 because lithium is what is the primary material for a lot of batteries and what's going to go into electric vehicles and that sort of stuff, which obviously has net positive effects for the environment and carbon emissions and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, lithium mining itself, very deleterious to the environment that it's actually in, and can be, disastrous for the communities around it. Like, it is the dirtiest, most dangerous kind of resource extraction that there is in a lot of instances. So Rio Tinto wanted to put a lithium mine somewhere in Serbia. Basically it would have been worth $2.4 billion. So it's a bit of spare change. So the relevant minister in Serbia has now revoked that. And then obviously
almost like good in terms of environmental damage.
I mean, good, but the funny thing is,
we also need the lithium for batteries, but also it does seem like they're just doing it because it's like shitty and personal rather than because of the environmental damage. Like, hey, we were fine with you opening up great scars in Gaia, in Mother Nature, to extract mineral resources, but don't you kick our tennis player out, you son of a bitch. No. Now all of a sudden we're very concerned about the environment. Okay.
And this is the thing, is the Serbian government has been, as a part of all this shit in Serbia, they've been using it to whip up nationalist sentiment and God knows what else. And they're pretty pissed off at the Australian government. So probably the funny thing is you can sort of see there's a slight linkage because the Djokovic on his, was it his Instagram or his Twitter? On his Instagram, he's got 10.1 million followers. Posted a photo of the protests to the Australian mine and commented, "Clean air, water, and food are keys to health."
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, mate. Helpful.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, as someone, I would assume Rio Tinto have some sort of donation scheme to the federal government. Or at least they might have done in the past, whether that be on a state level or a federal level. So in some ways, this whole Djokovic saga, you could say, has just spectacularly backfired.
I can't imagine that a Liberal national government acted rashly without thinking of the second or third order consequences of things. I can't ever think of any examples where, aside from all of them, where the Liberal national government has done exactly that. It's like the story of that's like their what's that? Their super objective is to like do shit without thinking and then suffer second and third order consequences that they didn't imagine. That's like their entire narrative. That's their meta narrative over and over again. That's when they sit down, when the Liberal National Party sits down with Sigmund Freud for a bit of subconscious dream analysis, to be like, I think maybe you are sabotaging yourself. What was your relationship with your mother like?
Menzies. It's all about Menzies.
But still, the people who've been stuck in the detention for a decade are still there, and so while Djokovic may be out, that's still happening.
Stop thinking about it.
If they let them out, Tom, the boats will start coming again.
That's how it works.
No.
Boats, the boat machine,
no.
the boat gun,
boat cannon.
The boat cannon on the other side of the Pacific Ocean is just poised, waiting for you to let out half a dozen refugees. Okay? They're waiting. They've got their sights trained here on Victoria, ready to unleash the boats at the slightest provocation.
And we've been told that's a bad thing, but...
I mean, not to derail the whole conversation. I mean, having waves and waves of people ride by boat isn't a good thing either. But I think, for how many people is it? We're talking like probably a couple of dozen by this point that it might be, and some people in offshore detention as well, maybe a couple of hundred. Like just
I
let
think
them in.
that waves
and-
of immigration, no matter how they occur, are based on circumstances that are entirely outside of any one country's control.
Yeah.
And
Europe can't do anything about it. Like
inflicting-
Europe just has to like just deal with it. Like
inflicting deliberate cruelty on people as a way to disincentivize that travel is not only incorrect in that it doesn't work, and it's also morally reprehensible, and just for shits and giggles, for a third reason, also costs a shitload of money to enforce, which is an absolute waste.
Yeah.
Like just a practical,
so I feel
just
that
throw in a
whole-
practical reason there as well. It's bad, it's mean, it's expensive, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, all those people who say like, "Oh, I don't want my tax dollars like looking after these people." It's like they already are. They're just looking after them to be in torture camps.
Yeah, at much greater expense, I would add, keeping them in
Yeah,
the fucking
so-
gulags. Anyway, but you know what we think about these
these
Yes.
things.
these things.
Now,
Mm.
speaking of doing crazy out there, well, just doing things and damned the consequences until people bring them up later.
Mm.
Boris Johnson.
Boris.
We haven't talked about Boris Johnson in a while.
No, it didn't need much discussion. We just sort of accepted the fact he was an idiot and moved on.
Yeah, and we
Turns
haven't
out
sort
the
of heard-
UK is just sort of realizing now. They're like, oh fuck, we elected an idiot. Oh, don't. Oh.
They're just having like
What the fuck?
convulsions of self-awareness. Just like, oh my god, the guy's a fucking moron. Oh, we just realized. So Boris Johnson is facing accusations that he and his staff attended, quote, bring your own booze parties and, quote, wine time Fridays at the peak of the UK's outbreak. So several parties at 10 Downing Street, some of which he was in attendance. And one of these occurred the night before Prince Philip's funeral in April of last year, where the restrictions were so strict and so strictly enforced that the Queen herself was forced to sit alone at his funeral. But turns out Bojo was having some wine and cheese, just chilling. It's not it wasn't a party, okay? It was a
gathering.
word
Business
function where we were singing, dancing, and drinking.
Oh yeah, we always have our business meetings over wine and cheese. I don't know about you guys.
Part of the reason why this is bad or so bad is that it's been leaked progressively. So at first it was just one party, which they fobbed off. Then it was another one and another one. And then
Gotta drip fetus. Can't do the Netflix model. Can't drop it all at once.
No.
It's where HBO have been successful. The week to week, just gotta give us
Get it
those little
out.
tidbits. Leak it out slowly.
And of course, after each time, Boris has a response and is like, it'll never happen again. And like this was the only exception.
And then
Yeah.
the Ron Howard voiceover comes over the top, goes, it did happen again.
Yeah. Like, that was the only time. That's the one time. What about this time? All right, there was only 2 times. 2 times it happened. What
So
about
yeah,
the
and
third
most
time?
damning-
Oh, boy.
Most damning of all, the Prime Minister's former spokesperson, Allegra Stratton, was videotaped sort of like laughing
In the press
about,
room.
in the press room, and they were sort of doing their prep with her staff to sort of talk about, the issues of the day, where they sort of prep her answers. And, there was obviously all of that's recorded, and there's her sort of laughing about that as to what's actually, I might actually share that so you can hear the clip there.
That clip is incredible.
It's just like, it's literally just like, it's so crazy because it's literally the political elite just like laughing at the plebs. It's literally just like, we literally do not give
cake.
a fuck. Yeah, literally. It is Marie Antoinette.
Laughing about a scandal laughing about a situation becoming a scandal that hasn't become the scandal yet, and
Yes.
thinking it's funny that this could be a scandal.
Boy, are
the
we
thing
corrupt.
That we did.
Hilarious.
Like, it's
Anyway, let's have a listen to Allegra Stratton, the Prime Minister's former spokesperson.
I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports?
I went home. Hold on.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas?
What's the answer?
I don't know.
It wasn't a party, it was cheese and
Just
wine.
be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced. One more, and then ask anybody have any questions today?
And it was not socially distanced.
Oh
To be
my
clear,
God.
we really are a bunch of pricks.
It's like,
Like it's just like they're just caught red-handed,
Mm.
like in full knowledge. Like like the Finnish prime minister or whatever it was. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, where she was like, "Oh, I didn't
the
quite know what the rule was." Like Boris tried that with one of these parties. He was like, "Oh, I wasn't informed that it was against the rules. My party making the rules." And then you have shit like this where they clearly knew what they were doing. And this is
yeah.
the reason why everyone's obviously pissed off is because hundreds. Okay, what's the death toll in the UK at the moment? UK COVID death. I'm doing this on.
While you do that, I might just show this little clip of Boris Johnson addressing the thing that he definitely did. I'll play this clip as well. This is interesting.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise. I know that millions of people across this country have made extraordinary sacrifices over the last 18 months. I know the anguish that they have been through, unable to mourn their relatives, unable to live their lives as they want or to do the things they love. And I know the rage they feel with me and with the government I lead when they think that in Downing Street itself, the rules are not being properly followed by the people who make the rules. A work event. But Mr. Speaker, with hindsight, I should have sent everyone back inside. I should have found some other way to thank them. And I should have recognized that even if it could be said technically to fall within the guidance, there would be millions and millions of people who simply would not see it that way, people who suffered terribly, people who were forbidden from meeting loved ones at all, inside or outside. And to them and to this House, I offer my heartfelt apologies. And all I ask is that Sue Gray be allowed to complete her inquiry into that day and several others so that the full facts can be established. And I will, of course, come back to this House and make a statement.
It's such a non-apology apology. Like, even though it was technically within the guidance, I'm just trying to fob that off as go, no, it's technically within the rules, but I see why you're upset. It's literally that thing that my dad used to do to me, where it's like, oh, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, or I'm sorry your feelings are hurt. Like, it's such a non-apology apology.
Just to be clear, the earlier point, there are over now 150,000 deaths in the UK since the start of the pandemic.
Just wine
So
and
it's not-
cheese. Don't worry about
Wine
it.
and cheese.
You can't get COVID over wine. The virus knows.
Probably the funniest part of this, or one of the funniest things, is that so, as a lot of politicians do, Australia as well, they have penned like they've done the whole we'll have a senior public servant do an independent inquiry.
Yes, awaiting the results of the inquiry, which I think is step number 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So Mr. Johnson, and this is what the Prime Minister did in Australia when, like, looking at the sex scandals that came here earlier as well. They assigned Cabinet Secretary Simon Case would lead an investigation into the parties, and then he had to step down a week later when it was revealed he had a party in his office around the same time.
He was at a party when he got given the commission. And they called him up and he's like, sorry, I'm at an orgy. I can't take this call right now. What's it regarding, huh?
So they've now
Did
handed...
that actually happen?
No,
Just
that was...
sidebar. No, wasn't there, not them specifically, but wasn't there a politician during the lockdown
There was a
who
minister...
attended an orgy in,
yes.
France?
There were, no, it wasn't.
That was in...
It was. I feel like it was in one of the...
Eastern Europe.
Yeah, northern Eastern Europe,
was it?
one of those countries.
It was...
Yeah, just funny
it.
that George's outrageous, like, no, I'm at an orgy in the middle of lockdown. I can't do blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that actually did happen.
I remember that
which
story.
country was it? Was it Austria or something?
Hungary.
No, it was... Hungarian. that's right.
Anti-gay
And then he got
Hungarian
caught, he tried
politician
to climb out the window.
resigned
Sorry.
after being caught at an orgy during lockdown. A gay orgy.
You mean Hungary, right?
In
Hungary.
Hungary.
He's a Hungarian
You
politician.
said Yeah, you said in Hungaria. You did
All right.
a Canadian.
All right,
A
mate.
Canadian from
Oh no,
Canada.
you're perfect, Tom. You've never fucking said anything wrong.
Never. I'm like a
so
wizard.
the-
I say precisely what I mean to.
Just go back into that Business Insider article. It was a 25-man orgy, that's solid.
But then he tried to climb out the window.
Yeah, tried to try him down a
hurt
drain pipe.
himself trying to escape.
Yeah,
And they just rounded him up outside.
good time.
Oh,
Yeah. Amazing, but clearly has stamina.
Okay,
has
so
legs.
Tony Abbott eating an onion, Scott Morrison suggesting children drive forklifts, and a Hungarian politician getting caught in a gay orgy during lockdown. An anti-gay politician caught at a gay orgy during lockdown.
Yeah, that was.
Or walk into a
10 out of
bar.
10.
We're putting all these stories, we're Marie Kondoing. These definitely spark joy. These add value. We're keeping those folded up nicely on the shelf.
So, anyway, this inquiry that is taking place has now been handed, as Boris said in the clip, to Sue Gray. This is another senior public servant. And there's apparently 16 alleged gatherings that took place at Downing Street, in and around Downing Street during the pandemic. So not just one or two, 16. So to this end...
But it never happened again. Adam.
Never happened again. Turns out people aren't too happy with Boris after this, to the point where, I mean, Labor obviously called for his resignation, but Labor are always going to do that. The party itself, the Tories, have just are now turning against him. Like the members for Scotland are just like, there's a real strong chance that he will either get pushed out, or if the inquiry, depending on which way you want to pronounce it, comes back that, he was at fault, he's basically pinned his own, he said he will step down basically if he's, at fault. So it's quite probable the UK will have a new Prime Minister in the next couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, it seems like something like 54 members of Parliament need to write in and issue a...
54
what is it?
Tories. I think 54 of his own party, not just any MPs, but 54 of his own party, and that equals the 15% threshold that need to say they have no confidence in him to trigger a no confidence vote.
Correct.
And they understand maybe 20 to 40
letters.
MPs
Such letters have already been handed in. Yeah. There was a great little dig from one of his mates, David Davis, which has got to be the dumbest name for a fucking your surname is Davis, and you're calling your kid David. Okay, all right, mate.
David, alliteration. It goes beautifully.
Anyway, so senior Conservative MP David Davis told. It makes me laugh just looking at it. Tells Boris Johnson, "In the name of God, go." So it's quoting a Oliver Cromwell, famously used by Oliver Cromwell, levied at Neville Chamberlain, who was the pissweak equivocating Prime Minister just before Winston Churchill, who famously appeased Hitler in World War, or just before World War II. So we'll have a little, which is a pretty devastating, withering indictment to say shit that someone said to Neville Chamberlain, who's famously one of the most hated prime ministers in history now. That's pretty withering. We'll have a little listen to that. It's a really short clip.
But I expect my leaders to shoulder the responsibility for the actions they take. Yesterday, he did the opposite of that. So I'll remind him of a quotation altogether too familiar to him of Leo Amery to Neville Chamberlain. "You have sat there too long for all the good you have done. In the name of God, go."
Order. Prime Minister.
I must say to the right honourable gentleman, I don't know what he's talking about, but what I can tell him, I don't know what quotation he's alluding to that he's referring. But what I can tell him is that I think I've told this House repeatedly throughout this pandemic. I take full responsibility for everything done in this government and throughout the pandemic.
I don't know. I don't read. I don't know quotes.
Funny because a lot of people have said that Boris, models himself after Churchill, so he's the antithesis, I guess, of Chamberlain. So that's an interesting sort of quip, as it were.
Not looking
solid
good.
burn.
Very good burn.
The English have always been better at burning each other.
Yes, very witty burns. Very highfalutin, highbrow. Whereas just like here in the Australian House of Parliament, someone just goes, prick! So,
I think,
hang on, mate. Calm down.
Yeah, now's all we hear are like just, here, or,
burn ye me!
Good. It's funny, though, because Boris Johnson has famously been sort of made of Teflon for a lot of these public scandals that have come about. I mean, Tom, you've spoken about the bus thing at one
the fire
point.
engine.
Yeah, where it was like there's some other thing happening.
Yeah, the bus for Brexit. Like,
the bus, the Brexit bus. That's what
with
it
all
was.
just with all the bullshit lies on it when they were campaigning for Brexit, and then afterwards he just gave interviews where he talked about a weird hobby of painting buses, apropos of nothing that no one wanted to hear about. So potentially changing the Google results of Boris Johnson bus to be something else, which is. I respect the genius.
It is evil genius level shit. It's almost too clever to give him credit for it. I don't think he's smart enough for it, but maybe someone else in his staff was smart enough for it.
I don't think
devilishly clever. But
if you're Sue Gray, I don't know who she is, but surely you can't you can't paper over the crack on this one. You've got to hand the report in, and it's got to show that there's got to be some teeth to this. And if that's the case,
the report's just come back. Turns out Bojo's a great guy. Bojo, did he do a BYO party? No. Oh no. For sure.
It's like, no, the B, the B was a typo. It was just your booze. It was just own your booze, not bring your own booze. It was your own booze.
Your own booze. Drink it in your own house by yourself.
Good. I might go get another beer on that note.
On that note, we have been, on the note of problematic drinking, we have been, we are, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web. danmurphys.com and unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you visit us on all the bullshit social media channels that do or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. It's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
For some reason, I kind of broke that one and broke out with that one. And you can follow us all down to 10 Downing Street, where we will be having a work function, which is not a party, with wine and cheese.
We will be having a work function piss up and nothing more.
It is a work function, okay? And we brought a keg.
Definitely.
Unrelated.
It's definitely not an orgy in the middle of lockdown.
A 25-man orgy.
Yeah, no.
That was what I was laughing at. Just the concept of a 25-person orgy.
25 is a lot of dudes. That's a lot of sausage.
We won't be having a 25-man orgy, but just on an unrelated note, is this building fire escape accessible?
Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week. It's a lot of bratwurst in one area.
There's a whole thing we could say about the fact that Hungary has a repressive regime against queer people.
No, we're ending it on a funny. Don't.
Funny note.
And
yeah, I was going to say, you got to end it on the bratwurst joke. But the thing about bratwurst jokes, they're the worst.
Well said.